Thank you, Representative Bell, Majority Leader Bell, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for coming to speak with me. So it's a busy day here,
It's
but
absolutely
glad
it's
we
a
found time to have a conversation.
huge Wednesday. We got a lot going on today. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and give us kind of your background and your experience.
So my name's John Bell. I grew up in Mount Olive, North Carolina. I was one of those folks that swore I'd never come back home. I went to school at North Duplin High School. Is where I graduated high school from, and I went off to UNCW down in Wilmington, and found myself graduating college when I figured out what I wanted to do. So I worked with the Boy Scouts of America. I grew up in the Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout. So I moved back to Clinton, North Carolina. So I didn't move home, about 25 minutes away, and so served with the Boy Scouts for 5.5 years, and got promoted. Lived in Panama City Beach, Florida, for a couple of years. Then moved back home. Moved about a mile from my parents' house, and bought a house and got into the banking industry, and been into banking and insurance, commercial insurance industry for years, and now I'm in the private equity side of that world. So it's been a fun ride. Thoroughly enjoy what I do outside the General Assembly. And so I'm married. My wife and I met and got married in 2010. We have right now an 8-year-old daughter. Come September the 5th, she'll be 9. So we've got a 9-year-old little girl. So we're starting a third grade. So we're excited about that. In 2011, got involved in politics. 2010, 2000, actually goes back to 2000. Ooh, goes back to 2007. Helped run my first campaign, and then stayed involved in politics at the local level. With our local party, was vice chair to party for 2 terms, and then in 2012 stepped out and ran for office. And I ran in a really tough Republican primary, squeaked through by about 39 votes, and then went on to win the next 6 elections. In 2015, was elected by this body to serve as the majority whip, and that's an honor. And it's an honor for your folks back home to elect you to come serve and represent their voice in Raleigh. And when you get here, to have your colleagues say, "Hey, look, we want this guy to serve in a leadership capacity." So they elected me in 15 as the majority whip. I could count to 61 and 72 and 3. Those are the magic numbers. And then in 2016, after our majority leader resigned, Representative Mike Hager, they elected me to serve as majority leader, and I've served in that capacity ever since.
As House Majority Leader, you hold a fairly powerful position in the House. How would you say this role has prepared you to be Speaker of the House?
Well, so they're 2 different roles, but it's a lot of dealing with personality. So what I deal with day in and day out is deal with personalities, not just on our caucus side, but also work with on the minority leader, my friend Robert Reeves, and his caucus and members, and finding ways for the minority caucus to work with the majority caucus. But then also, the largest part of my job is to make sure that our members, our Republican members, all 72 of them, are successful. And they achieve their agendas for their district. We work together for a common agenda, and it's my job to work in conjunction with the Speaker to make sure the majority agenda goes through the House and then eventually becomes the law of the land. And we've been very successful in that one. My colleagues have seen fit to elect me to the leadership position I'm in now. They've done it 5 times. So I'm the longest serving majority leader in state history. I take that responsibility very seriously, but I do know what my job is, and my job is to make sure that our caucus is successful. So I make sure every voice is heard, every concern is addressed. Sometimes you got to make tough decisions, but I try to do it in a way to where everybody feels that their voice is heard and they're respected. And then on the campaign side, when we leave the legislative building, it's my job to go out and raise funds and recruit folks to run for office, and make sure that we have a very qualified candidates to run for office. And that's why we've been successful for the last 10 or so elections here in the majority.
So you've been here a while. What
I
would you
have.
say your most significant legislative accomplishment is, if you had to pick something?
I go back to the first bill that kind of helped get me to where I'm at. And we had a situation back home that a wind turbine facility was being put into what we call a low-level flying route, training route for military aircraft. You may say, well, why is that important? Well, I've got around 90 F-15 sitting on the runway at Seymour Johnson, and then also, you look down at the operations at Cherry Point, and that's my district stretch from Goldsboro down to New Bern and to Havelock area. So it's 4 counties in eastern North Carolina. And if those wind turbines would have been built, it would have actually shut down those low-level flying routes, and we would have been at risk for losing Seymour Johnson in operation at Cherry Point. So I worked with a lot of senior members, not just from Eastern North Carolina, but all over the state to get that legislation passed, build those relationships, and that kind of launched my career. So I would say that's the first piece of significant legislation that helped launch me to where I'm at. At the end of the day, when I leave here, unfortunately, but fortunately, the legislation I probably will be known for is what we've done on disaster relief and flood mitigation. I wish I never knew about that, but the facts are that my area was flooded multiple times. 500,000 year storms happened multiple times in my area. And so I had to learn pretty quick on how to address the disaster relief side. And now we're working on how we mitigate that damage from hurting communities and families and businesses.
So, as Speaker of the House, you'll undoubtedly need to work with members from both sides of the aisle, especially if Republicans don't maintain a supermajority. How do you intend to build consensus and find common ground on different issues?
Well, so the speaker votes a ways out, and we have to make sure we maintain a majority before we even have the conversation on speaker. But my job will be to travel around the state. I've done that for years. Even before I became majority leader, I traveled the state helping raise money and helping advocate for Republicans. So we got to get that done. I feel confident that the product speaks for itself. We've done a great job. You look at North Carolina and what we've done as far as on the regulatory environment side, the tax reform. We have a booming state. We're one of the fastest growing states in the country. So the proof's in the pudding on the conservative agenda and what we've been able to accomplish. Now we've got to show that we can govern and continue that path for generations to come. And so we've got a great message. So it's my job to share that message. Building consensus, building relationships is nothing new to me. I've done it throughout my whole career before I came into the General Assembly, during the General Assembly, and I'll continue doing that after I leave the General Assembly. But as Speaker, you're elected by the body as a whole. All 120 members elect that person to represent the chamber. So working with the majority and minority caucus, building relationships, understanding what every district is like, the needs in every part of the state. I'm from Eastern North Carolina. I'm blessed to live there, but I also understand the needs of Western North Carolina. And by Western North Carolina, I'm not talking about, Charlotte. I'm talking about Canton. I'm talking about places, Mars Hill, little communities in the western part of the state that have the same needs and concerns that a lot of my folks in northeastern North Carolina, southeastern North Carolina, and in small towns throughout. So I understand that. But I also understand the challenges that large cities have that face. In my area, we look at transportation as connectivity. How can we connect from point A to point B? And a lot of our metropolitan areas, they understand that as congestion. How do they relieve that flow of people moving in? How do they have affordable housing? How can they continue to grow without being restricted? So you've got to understand not only the different parts of the state, but the multifacets within the state. And building those relationships I've done for years. We'll continue to do that both inside and outside the building.
In North Carolina, we face a variety of challenges in this state, whether it's economic growth, infrastructure, education, healthcare, etc. How do you plan to address some of these issues as Speaker?
Well, you've got to be specific on the issues, but the role of Speaker is not taking each one of those issues and saying, this is my agenda and what we're going to do. You don't do that. You listen to the body, you listen to the majority caucus, the minority caucus, you get the consensus of the members of that group, and then whatever that consensus is, you help make sure that it's successful and is vetted. It navigates through the committee process, make sure that you've got the right people helping lead those pieces of legislation. So that's how you navigate through that as Speaker. North Carolina's a growing state. We've got challenges. Nothing we do anymore is easy. So you look at the continuation of what we've done on tax reform. You look at the ever-changing environment through transportation. How do we continue to fund transportation? As a growing state, we've got education challenges, not just with pre-K, K-12, but also our community college system, trying to retool people and get them into the workforce. We've got a huge need for skilled trades, not just in the construction and electrical plumbing side, but also on the healthcare side. And so we've got challenges there that we have to meet to retool people, to train them, get them into the workforce. And then you look at our university system. We have in my opinion, the premier university system in the country. And we need to keep that standard. But we've also got folks that have realized that, hey, look, we want to get some of these North Carolina students to come to our schools. And you've got, in my area, you've got Alabama and Tennessee and Ole Miss and other schools coming in our area trying to recruit our students. And so we've got to make sure that our university stays at the top of the game and not only attract folks from inside our state, but outside. So we do have challenges, but they're challenges that we can meet. And when you put forth, that's the beautiful thing about the General Assembly. You have people from all walks of life, all different backgrounds. And when you put these talented people together that truly care about our state, normally you come up with pretty neat results.
So you're not the only candidate running for speaker. You got Representative Hall has already said he's going to run. Jason Sane seems like he's intending to run as well. And then you've got Representative Kidwell who's also declared for the race. So obviously these guys are your colleagues.
And my friends.
Right. And what would you say? What's your message to your fellow Republicans, and what qualifies you for the office of
Well,
Speaker?
all four of those would do a good job. All four of us have different skill sets that we bring to the table. When you look at the skill set that I bring to the table, I've done the job as majority leader. I've earned the trust of the caucus multiple times and for multiple sessions. I've learned the respect of my friends on the other side of the aisle, and not just on the other side of the aisle, but also in the other chambers. So as Speaker, you would need to learn those dynamics, learn how to navigate and work through those dynamics. That's how you get stuff done. In business, I provide structure, discipline, organization, schedules. Those type of things are how I run my life. That's what we do in business. We get results. So bringing that business background, the leadership ability that I've learned by being a majority leader, I think sets me apart from other candidates.
And what would be your message to your fellow Republicans who will be voting on the speaker's race?
My message is simple. Is you have a choice on how we move forward as a chamber, but also as a caucus. And I feel like I've earned the trust and respect to make sure that we continue to put our conservative agenda in the forefront and lead our state to continue being one of the best states in the country.
Well, Majority Leader Bell, I really appreciate you joining us for this interview, and thank you for taking some time out of your very busy day.
Yeah, thank you very much, and always happy to have a conversation. Thank you for what you do.